Well, a very good morning to you. Thanks for clicking on to Mark Vogan's latest edition of the long-range discussion for the 27th of January. And we continue to look at things across Europe and see the battleground of the models flipping back and forward between warm and cold, particularly across the western part of the continent, folks. But there's more certainty in the models for the cold building and intensifying over the next 5 to 7 days across particularly eastern and central parts of Europe. Now, I'm writing here now for first-hand weather. I'm really excited about writing articles and being a part of the first-hand weather team. So I encourage you to check out firsthandweather.com, like us on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll continue to keep you updated on the weather across the United States as well as that across Europe, and I'll be keeping you up to date on the European weather scene. But certainly we're looking at very, very interesting times across Europe. The latest model run of the European model shows the cold more and more over the western side of the UK. The runs yesterday, last night, certainly were not as impressive for the western part of Europe. Now, I've written a detailed write-up on my own blog regarding the model uncertainty, especially the reason for the fact that we've seen the cold. We've got physical evidence to suggest the models are seeing the intensification of the cold over eastern parts of Europe, and I'll explain to you very briefly why. We've got an area of high pressure sitting over the northwest of Russia. We've also got a large upper level low sitting to the north of the Black Sea, northeast of the Black Sea. These two features, folks, are going to act like wheels. And of course, we've got a very, very large pool of Arctic air, Siberian air. Of course, that is the most intense cold air pool in the whole of the Northern Hemisphere. Much colder than even what Canada can produce. The reason being is the land mass is about 3 or 4 times, I don't know which, it's either 3 or 4, larger than Canada is. So although Canada can produce severe cold air, it helps build over the snowfields, the lack of daylight, and indeed generates its own cold air. Siberia, being 3 or 4 times larger than that, means it can generate the coldest air anywhere over the Northern Hemisphere. And what we're going to be seeing across Europe is the two features, the high and this upper low, is going to act like wheels in terms of pulling this frigid air over and into eastern parts of Europe and into eventually Central Europe. The area, like I've explained to you folks, the area of largest uncertainty is over the western part of the continent. The Azores High has been so dominant. And what the problem is the models are physically seeing basically the intensification of cold air that's already over the eastern part of Europe. Now the problem is, like a body of water, if you change the properties within that body of water, for example, add more water to it, it's going to flow faster. It's going to change things further downstream. The problem is the models are having a tough time basically defining the changes that are going to take place over Europe. Now, is the Azores High going to win out against the pressure that's building over Eastern Europe? Or is it, like the latest model run suggests, is it going to start to deflect heights more towards the north and northeast over top of this ridge? Now, why I believe this is going to take place, and we are going to see colder weather by the end of this week and into the weekend. Now, yes, we are going to see, folks, colder weather this week across the UK and Ireland, okay? Now, the biggest question is whether we're going to see a change. Is that cold air going to drift far enough to the west? My reasoning, instead of being classified as hope forecasting, my reasoning for justification, so to speak, for why I believe the cold air will get further west is the fact that the models have been persistently showing a negative North Atlantic oscillation. Now, yes, just because we have a North Atlantic oscillation negative doesn't mean the cold air is going to sit over the UK and Ireland. Yes, I believe that is true. But what I do think is, I've been forecasting it all along that we are going to see the change. Let's skip through the sequence, folks. Sunday, notice here the coverage of cold air over Europe. That has been a persistent, steady feature on this map. Therefore, I have no doubt we're going to see severe Arctic outbreak across Eastern and Central Europe as we progress in the next week. This is for Tuesday. Notice the tongue of blue. Coming out of Siberia, the wheels are driving that cold air into the heart of Europe. I'm very concerned, folks, because models struggle to see the Arctic low-level air. It sometimes doesn't see the intensity of that cold air, and therefore, like we've seen with North America, with that severe cold drifting out of Canada into the Midwest and eventually the Northeast, it didn't pick up on just how cold that air was. And of course, with the negative North Arctic oscillation and showing this cold getting through Europe, I'm concerned that these model runs are not going to be cold enough, and it might be conservative. Now, looking at that, yes, it's brutally cold. It will be probably down towards -30 in Moscow during the mid part of this week. My concern, like I've said, is these models cold enough? And if they aren't, we are in for big trouble over Eastern and Central Europe. Not only this, we're going to be seeing big snowfalls taking place. That cold air bumping and eradicating, pushing back the warm air is going to spark off big time snowstorms, folks. Big time snowstorms could cripple major cities like Warsaw in towards Germany, the Low Countries, and then eventually the UK and Ireland as well. By Friday, you notice here, it just gets colder and colder. Notice how the ridge, like I said to you, is showing the Azores high starting to get pushed more and more to the north as the trough and the high pressure pumping that cold air further southwest. We've got a lot of things to look at here, folks. There is a lot to talk about. Notice the heights starting to get pushed more to the north. The cold air getting down towards the Iberian Peninsula. And by Monday, note here, the core of the cold is over, basically Germany, Netherlands, Belgium, and into France. And of course, there's blue showing up here across the southeastern part of the UK. Very cool looking pattern is certain. And again, although I've got about 95% certainty over the cold over the eastern part of the UK, Europe, sorry, it's more this area here, the battleground of Western Europe, is the more uncertain scenario. But if my forecast holds right, if the NAO goes negative, then I have, pretty high confidence that we will see the cold air over the western half of the continent by late this week and into the weekend and into the following week as well. But certainly there's a lot to play for. In the coming days, we're going to potentially see very cold weather push across Greece into Italy as well. We could, and I've been forecasting this, folks, for snow down to sea level along the Mediterranean coast. Relatively unusual, but I think with given the pattern I'm seeing, it is very, very possible. Lots of excitement, folks, to look at, and I'll continue to keep you posted in write-ups, both in first-hand weather as well as on my blog. I continue and urge you to keep with us. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of winter left in this pattern, folks. Stay tuned. Have a great day. Bye-bye.